Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. East African countries present their budgets later today. At 2.3 trillion shillings, Kenya's is the most ambitious and biggest in the region and in its own history. Infrastructure, security and energy remain key priorities, but the budget also pays increased attention to social services such as education. There are concerns though. Where will the money come from? Are current debt levels sustainable? Is this a Jubilee re-election campaign budget? So today's guests are the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee in the National Assembly. She's also a Member of Parliament for Teso South. She's Mary Emase Otucho, a member of URP and therefore the Jubilee Alliance. We also have with us John Badi, a member of the Finance Committee. He's a Suba MP and Chairman of ODM Party, which of course means that he represents the interests of the opposition Accord coalition. And last but not least, we have Kwame Owino, the Executive Director of the Institute for Economic Affairs here in Nairobi. Good morning and welcome. As always, as you can see, we have with us the regular panel of Mutegi Njau and David Makali. And so, Kwame, I'll start with you because I'm hoping that you'll be the neutral party here. Give us a brief overview of the budget-making process. How do we get to where we are, the budget presentation?
Okay, well, the budget is actually a cycle that goes on throughout the year. So usually it starts with, at one point, of course, just before we got to where we are today, a circular is sent from the ministry. I mean, that's the formulation stage where from the Treasury, specific ministries prepare in line with their sectoral plans, prepare budget proposals. These are all brought down together. There's an opportunity for each of those ministries or sectors to meet with stakeholders or all interested parties, private sector, non-state actors of all kinds to make their proposals. Then all these are synthesized, the numbers are made together at the formulation stage, and then it's sent up to Treasury. Of course, after that, Treasury prepares the estimates, has a discussion with the specific committees in Parliament. The numbers are agreed, then they're presented as the estimates. Now, it's the estimates that are presented on, I think, at the last week of April, on the 25th of April, which are presented. So, at that point, then, after that formulation, numbers are agreed. The basket, of course, of funds and how the funds are going to be made will be discussed as well. The minister presents, the cabinet secretary presents it before Parliament, as the presentation today would be. Then obviously comes the first, we have the execution stage. So it's like a cycle. So you start from the formulation, you go back down to the approval stage, then you go to execution, and then it comes back. So it's basically a cycle throughout the year. Okay,
Ms. Otucho, I'll come to you now because you're the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee. We just heard from Kwame that you've been involved very closely in the formulation of this budget that will be presented later this afternoon. Give us your advance insights.
Yes, today the CS will be presenting the estimates of expenditure for national government, Parliament, Judiciary, and the Equalization Fund. And our role as the Budget and Appropriations Committee is to lead the budget oversight process. So we have been involved in the exercise, although initially the budget policy statement was handled by the liaison committee before the budget committee was constituted, but we took it up from the estimates. So we have been investigating, of course, and also to discuss and review these estimates, and we just finalized and did our report yesterday, and that is what the CS will be. After a number of consultations with ministries, departments and agencies, we were able to agree on the various budget estimates which are being presented, and we also managed to raise our concerns as the budget committee with respect to coordination, control and monitoring. Okay, so I was coming to that. So give us your characterization of the balance of priorities we'll be hearing about later today. So basically the key, I would like to give first the key highlights. The key highlights, we're looking at a budget of almost 2.3, up from 2.09 in the last financial year. Out of that budget, we're expecting to raise 1.5 revenue, up from 1.2 from the last financial year. And out of these monies, 284, of course, going to the counties. We have 258 recurrent. We have 517 for development. We have the 6 billion for the equalization fund. We have the 5 billion for contingency fund. And looking at that budget, we have looked at the figures and the estimates that have been provided. And as the budget committee, we have certain concerns. And I think I want to start with the revenue projections. According to the statistical analysis that have been done for the last 4 years, we feel as budget that there has been an overestimation of these figures, and also the ministry actually registered underperformance of revenue in those last 4 years. So our concern is budget, is that we need to be more realistic. Because if we are not more realistic, then we're going to have a situation where we have an increased deficit that will call for more funding or more borrowing, because now that means government will either have to borrow domestically or borrow internationally to be able to breach that deficit.
So that's revenue projections, that's one concern?
That is one concern. Our other concern is, of course, from that building from the revenue concern, is on debt financing. We are concerned as a country on the sustainability of debt financing. Are we within the threshold? Yes, Treasury tells us at 48.5 we are within the threshold. But when we compare that to the East African Community agreed threshold of 5%, we feel like we are approaching there. We're almost there. Whereas we are at 48.5 compared to the 74, which is the international, we still feel we need to be cautious on our national debt. So that means then we need to put more stringent measures, controls to enhance revenue collection, so that we minimize the deficit, so that we do not increase this debt. Because we realize that going forward to 2017, 2018, there will be increased obligation in terms of increased interest rates. There would be debt redemption issues arising. So we do not want to put a country in a state where we have obligations that we are not able to meet, or we have to increase borrowing to be able to run.
So those are some of the it was reported yesterday that Parliament forced the minister to increase your spending for hospitality and tours by 4 billion.
I was in the discussion, and I want to say a good number of the members in the committee actually rejected the increments. There were two issues. One was to increase constituency staff emoluments. We said no. The other expenditure was to purchase land, 800 million, to purchase land for parliamentary training college that is supposed to be, land is supposed to be identified somewhere. We turned it down, and we told, what we told the minister is, he cannot reduce funds for travel, he cannot reduce funds mainly on the travel, on the austerity area.
The story was that you increased by 4 billion.
And we insisted that we maintain the ceilings that were set.
That's not what was reported.
Okay, fine. Let's come back to that in a little bit more
depth. So from 31 that had been proposed by the Parliamentary Service Commission, we brought it down to 28.4.
Okay,
actually, we did reduce the proposal.
We'll revisit this issue. Let's just come to the concerns you might have, Mr. Mbadi. Would you agree with Ms. Otucho in terms of her characterization of the budget?
First of all, I wanted to say that, as Kwame did put it, the cycle, there is the budget review outlook paper that is prepared every September that is supposed to mirror what happened the previous year and also reflect on to where are we supposed to go going forward. In February, we get the budget policy statement paper, which is supposed to actually mirror what is expected in the budget estimates. Now, what we are likely to see today, actually I think we should demystify this, what is expected today. What is expected today is just budget policy highlights and revenue raising measures. Basically, Kenyans have had the budget from 28th of April because that is what the law requires. We know in terms of figures how much is supposed to be spent where and where it is supposed to be sourced from. So the figures that Honorable Berry Mase gave are basically what it is in the budget. We are looking at a budget of 2.26 trillion, out of which 858 will go to the recurrent expenditure, 809 or about 810 billion will go towards the development expenditure, 284 will go to counties, 6 billion, as she puts it, will go to the equalization fund, and 5 billion will go to the contingencies. Out of this money, only 1.5 billion is expected to be raised locally. And this 1.5 billion is composed of 1 trillion, is composed of 1,376 billion, which is coming from ordinary revenue, and of course 124 is A&A, or appropriation in aid. The rest will be 72 billion from grants. Then we'll have about 241 from domestic borrowing, which are short from the figures given in the BPS of 197 billion. There is a figure of 456 billion or thereabout to be raised through foreign borrowing. Now, coming back to the concerns, I think as a country we really need to be so candid and talk to the Treasury that a lot is not going right in the Treasury. Why? First, there is a disconnect between the budget policy statements, which was given to Parliament and to people of Kenya in February, and what we see in the budget estimates. And the budget policy statement is supposed to mirror, or rather to give the policy direction of the government. What we see is a complete deviation from the same. In fact, all sectoral lines, the figures are different. That just tells you the political interference with the budget making process. But it means that after the Treasury had come up with their thinking going forward, the policies where the country should go to, then somehow late in the day, the government of the day realized that we have an election next year, and therefore we need to change figures to help us win the election, or to help us. So
you think this is a Jubilee election budget?
It is a Jubilee election, and I will tell you the danger that I see. The dangers that I see is, number one, the kind of borrowing, the debt sustainability for this country is something that we need to start engaging our minds to. Secondly, the intention of the government was to reduce domestic borrowing. In fact, that is why we went sovereign bond way, so that we cushion the private sector from being crowded out. But what are we seeing? What we have been seeing is an increased domestic borrowing. Even, I have just mentioned, the budget policy statement had mentioned anticipation of raising domestically to 197. We have increased that by about 43 billion in the actual estimates. What are we saying in short? We are saying that the government is going to borrow more. And the other danger is that even that domestic borrowing of 241 will be more, because we are not likely to raise 1.376 trillion through ordinary revenue, because the ambitious growth of 6% is not likely to be achievable given the election fever that we see already with us, and also given
some would argue is caused by your side of
it is not caused by our side, it's caused by all of us, those who have refused to sit down and talk. It's not, you cannot blame it on us. I think as a country we need to accept that this election fever that is coming in is going to damage this economy, and that is a fact. That's something that we cannot run away from.
Okay. Kwame, let me come to you, because we're hearing similar concerns from both our guests, okay? Debt levels, revenue projections, but of course ascribe to different motives. You didn't quite give us a motive, but Mr. Mbadi gives us a motive, telling us it has to do with being in an election year. Now, As an economist, from where you sit, given all the analyses that you pursue, is this an issue of capacity or political interference? Okay,
if you allow me, let me start with something, since we are speaking to members of parliament, I mean members of the National Assembly. One of the things that they need to take to account is that, yes, you're right, the estimates were released on 28th of April, so you have them for a month and a bit. But one thing that none of them mentions is that the summary of estimates adds up to 2.27 trillion Kenya shillings. But however, when we go back to the sectoral estimates and actually add them up, it comes to about 2.4 trillion. So there's that one odd 130 billion.
A discrepancy.
That I think you people need to go back and discuss with the cabinet secretary. We didn't go through it once, twice or thrice. We've gone through it many times, and those numbers definitely don't agree. So the first thing is just basically numbers need to agree. So that's the first. The second is the question of urgency, and here I disagree completely with Honorable Mbadi. There's this idea that the Treasury working with the executive, and perhaps that's true, for political purposes is manipulating what gets into the budget, and that's true. But I think our parliament has never gotten rid of the shackles that, I mean, I've never walked away from the jail that the last constitution had on them. What we have today is a budget-making parliament. The budget is not made in the executive. So all the executive gives are proposals. So when you come here, Honorable Mbadi, and you're speaking and throwing your hands as if you're despondent, I'm just asking myself, put it on the house, on the floor, and say, look, this is not acceptable. That's one. Two, you're both concerned about debt, and yet you're approving new expenditures for fancy things, NYS. Those things contribute nothing economically. Nothing. And I also know the political things that lead to budgeting discipline. One of them is, we have a discussion somewhere, and we decide we're giving 1 billion shillings to Mira. That's how budgets grow. That's just how budgets grow. And none of you was hard saying, look, okay, fine, you come up here. So where are we getting this new money? Because that's the way it does. And as citizens, we are ourselves concerned that if there's one thing that is very political in every society, it's the budget. Why? Because it's dealing with the pockets of your constituents and the taxpayers who pay you. So please don't come here. It looks bad when you come here and you're both lamenting about how the Treasury should be. Actually, it should be the reverse. It should be the Treasury begging you to actually approve certain figures because they have this rationale for it. So getting back to the political bit, I don't think, and we speak about this as policy analysts, a budget is necessarily a political thing. And it's the very basis for discussions. So the executive makes a proposal. We'd like to spend 1 billion shillings for Mira, but the reason we'd like to justify it is X, Y, and Z. That's why Parliament approves the budget. So the ample time that you have between August, or rather between April and today, if you're saying that some of these things are going in without your approval, it shows that Parliament hasn't done its bit.
Can I just react to that? Because Kwame has rightly put it, that actually, and Kwame, you'll remember that I've really been in the forefront of insisting on the capacity of Parliament in terms of budget making process. I started it last Parliament.
Yes.
I want to tell you that today, Parliament is, I want to agree with you that today Parliament is a budget-making Parliament.
Yeah.
And for me, I am not lamenting. What I'm saying is that, first, I don't sit in the budget committee anymore. My coalition decided to give other people opportunity also to sit in that committee. And so the first time that I'll interact with this budget is when it comes to the floor of the House. So I wanted to correct that I have an opportunity that I have not exploited so far. There is an opportunity in Parliament.
I think this is in general terms.
Yes, known. But you are right to say that Parliament has not lived to the expectations in terms of interrogation or the budget estimates. We tend to, and that is the price to pay when you have the majority of parliamentarians who believe that they are in government. I have told my colleagues in Jubilee that you are really not in the executive. You should look at the budget as a parliament, not as a part of you being in Jubilee. But you see, again, the political play, that's why I was saying the political interference. When MPs sit together to reason, then you definitely will hear the executive inviting MPs. Twice, when I was a member of the budget committee, we have been invited to State House. I have refused to go in both occasions. And she can bear me witness, because I felt that was interference from the executive by the parliament, on Parliament, which has a responsibility in budget making process. I think we need to engage within the confines of the law, and that is why when I see the President and the Deputy talking about respecting law, the Parliament is only allowed to interact with the Executive through the Cabinet Secretary responsible for finance, or the Treasury. But a lot of times the Budget Committee goes to State House to agree budget at State House, which is completely unconstitutional.
Let me ask this.
Allow me to comment on this.
Let Mr. Cheche
First, I think I want to start with Honorable Mbade's last comment. I beg to disagree that we go to State House to make budget. And I don't think we've gone to State House. The only last time in 2013-2014 budget, we went to consult.
Over what?
Over some of the budgetary provisions in the budget, but we don't go to State House. We've never gone to State House this financial year. And going to the other allegation that this budget is basically for Jubilee elections, being that we are approaching elections, I also beg to differ with that. We are all aware that there are ongoing capital projects that were started immediately the Jubilee administration took over power. And these projects need to be completed. Just to name one, the standard gauge railway, the energy projects. So we must complete this project because we understand the importance of these projects to the economy. And I would agree with you on the departure of the estimates from the budget policy statement. And we've been with you in the budget committee, and our position was that we want the executive and the ministries to engage and consult before the presentation of the budget policy statement, so that they agree on the priority areas and agree on the figures before we present the budget policy statement. I think that was our position. And I mentioned earlier that this time around the budget committee did not handle the budget policy statement because it was being handled by the liaison committee because we had not been constituted. That notwithstanding, we have analyzed the budget and we realized the same mistake has been repeated. So we are not lamenting, but we have raised that concern, and we're saying that we do not want to see a repeat of that. So that once the estimates, the budget policy statement, which is supposed to form the basis upon which the estimates are actually, the figures are made.
You're saying you had no opportunity to correct that mistake. Why are you saying it won't be repeated and we are in the same phase that should have been fixed? When you realize
it has been repeated.
Yeah, when you realize that, was there no opportunity to fix it?
That is why we still have an opportunity, because we will be discussing the budget estimates are being tabled today. We will be discussing them after that. But basically what I'm saying is almost all these departments.
Because what then that means, Mheshimiwa, is what actually Mbadi is saying, that there is pressure to actually depart from the policy statement. That's why you can't arrest it. You say it's late, it cannot be done.
I think it's also important to understand that the estimates themselves are originated first of all by the MDS, ministries, departments and agencies, yes. Then presented to us to discuss, interrogate and make recommendations. Basically that is our role. So we do not, as budget committee, originate the estimates. So from our interrogation of these estimates, these are the observations.
Yes, but in
that we are tabling before the floor, so that we address these issues.
What I'm asking for clarity also is
I think Mbadi would like to come in.
Can I help? Okay. You see, the point is that Parliament, if you read Article 221 of the Constitution, it gives Parliament time, once the estimates are tabled. By the way, the estimates are already with us. What we expect today is just policy highlights. The estimates are tabled and given to the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the only committee that the Constitution specifically mentions to first look at those estimates, seek the views of Kenyans, and can alter them.
Yes, that's the point.
Let me tell you where the problem is. After the BPS, then a meeting was held in Naivasha. I think we need to be very candid. We should have told the executive to hold that meeting earlier, before the BPS.
That is
where now you find that this government is dysfunctioning. The Treasury should have advised the President to hold that meeting going towards the election. And there is nothing really wrong with the aligning budget to campaign if it is towards economic growth of the country. But what the President would have done was to hold that meeting that they held in Naivasha well before the BPS, so that when BPS is done, it is done in light of the discussion of the executive. Then it comes to Parliament, Parliament makes changes, so that when now we get the estimates, it is wrong to have estimates that are completely different from the BPS. Then therefore there is no need for having the BPS in the first place.
What I wanted to ask is this. the matter you raised about a billion shillings from Iran. When the president and deputy president go to counties, when giving goodies as budget committee, when they ask them where is that money come from?
They don't. They should, because you see, when the president promises to give Kwame Owino, for instance, 1 billion shillings, he's not. I don't think he's writing his check. It's basically coming from public. And the only institution that is allowed to raise taxes in Kenya is Parliament. In other words, he's making a promise and asking Parliament to find out how to pay for it. I mean, that's unacceptable. And that's why you should say, look, you gave 1 billion shillings, where should we cut it from? But that was asked.
Do you ask? And
that oversight function Parliament is failing.
Please respond to that, and then we'll take a break.
I agree with you. Those proclamations, when they are made, it doesn't mean, of course, the president is going to do a check. No, it has to be budgeted for. So that particular information goes to the department or the ministry concerned, and it has to be captured in the budget. And then it will come before the departmental committee that is oversighting that particular ministry, that has to deliberate, discuss, ask those questions, and approve it before it comes to the budget committee.
I don't think that responds to Mutegi's question, which is, you know, oversight. You know, why are you going around making...
You cannot stop.
Can I just...
we have to take a break very quickly.
Well, can I answer?
Yes.
Well, okay, the point is, these proclamations put us in a very awkward situation. That's why we have had, for the first time, last year and this year, we are going to have 2 supplementary budgets because of this confusion. And the point being raised here is that these things are distorting the policy direction of the country.
Okay, fine. So we'll take a break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV discussing the budget. What are your expectations from this year's budget? Talk to us. Our SMS number is 22422, or you can tweet us using the hashtag Cheche.